Well, I got a big 49ers update for you. It's really good news on Keion White and then Brandon Aiyuk. More of the same. Really? Maybe not. Maybe something new. Maybe some action on his part, which is why I'm going to talk about it. Lombardi herself's car just died outside of our parking lot, and I had to push it. I had to enlist the neighbors' help to push it to get it into position. Tried to jump it. That didn't work. I'm sweating right now. The live was delayed. I'm sorry that the live was delayed, but sometimes you've got to take care of business. Keion White looks like he's taking care of business. 49ers defensive lineman, they traded for him last year, was shot in the ankle at an event following the Super Bowl. 49ers said that he was expected to make a full recovery, and it looks like he indeed has. This is very, very promising workout footage for the 27-year-old defensive end. Going to go through it one more time. This is the first time that we've seen Keion White explosively moving. We did see a weightlifting video a couple months ago, but we didn't see explosive movement on that ankle. And I think that based on seeing this, it is a fair bet that Keion White is going to be ready for the start of training camp. He has made quite a bit of progress since this. This was posted on February 10th. This was surgery after Keion White was shot in the ankle in San Francisco. Ankle surgery went well, and of course, you always worry. I mean, bullet wound to the ankle. You don't know what kind of damage that could have done. So, looks like Keion White escaped with something that was not career-threatening, and he indeed has done the rehab or is finishing the rehab to get into a good position. We'll talk a little bit more about Keion and that 49ers defensive line, which has just turned over tremendously. 7 of the 8 projected rotation pieces in 2026 were not on the team back in 2024, just 2 years ago. Brandon Aiyuk, I said that we're not going to cover Brandon Aiyuk if it's just words that may not be accompanied by action, because actions speak a lot louder than words. Here, I think maybe there will be some action finally from Brandon Aiyuk. I'll explain why. He posted this on an Instagram story, and he said when members of the union that's in place to help players are lying or withholding information from a player on behalf of the team alongside a certified agent, that's some straight BS while he's tagging the NFLPA. So Brandon Aiyuk is going after the NFL Players Association now, or at least parts of the NFL Players Association. Not sure if he's going after management or fellow players. It's unclear based on what he wrote there. But this comes the day after he went after John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, and his own ex-agent. Ryan Williams is no longer officially listed as the agent for Brandon Aiyuk. Now, Aiyuk technically seems that he lied about Williams no longer being his agent 2 days ago, because when he said that, and when he said that he had filed the termination notice back in November, the database of the NFLPA said that Williams was actually still his agent. Now the database says that Williams is no longer his agent, and we've got Aiyuk talking about the NFLPA not guiding him correctly. Now, we've been guiding Brandon Aiyuk correct. We're not even trying to guide him, but the advice that he could have gotten by watching our YouTube channel was that his only move is to apply for reinstatement and then show up at the 49ers facility and then maybe force his release. And it has been mind-numbing that Brandon Aiyuk has not done any of that, that he's only turned to social media and complained. The fact that he is now tagging the NFLPA, talking about certified agents, using lingo that at least seems like he may have some idea of what he's talking about, makes me think that maybe he is getting some counsel or listening to some advice. Maybe he will apply for reinstatement, or, this is a prevailing theory that I think Commanders fans especially need to get into their heads. This guy might be done playing football for good, and he may just be bluffing throughout all of this. He may just be finding another person to blame. Oh, it's John Lynch's fault. It's Kyle Shanahan's fault. It's Ryan Williams' fault. Now it's the NFLPA's fault. Everyone but himself. That's kind of been the theme that I've gotten from Brandon Aiyuk throughout all of these complaints. It's everybody but himself, and he was the one that was paid $48.1 million and did not perform his end of the contract. And even though he aired out some grievances yesterday, it didn't seem like there was anything in that laundry list of grievances that actually made the 49ers look bad. I mean, John Lynch, if he did come to his house to check up on him, I think that's the sign of an active, good-hearted general manager. The whole Kyle Shanahan thing, yeah, Kyle Shanahan might have gotten emotional about something, but definitely didn't get as emotional about stuff as Brandon Aiyuk seems to be getting. So, I mean, there just seems to be a whole lot of projection in what Brandon Aiyuk is saying. And until I see some substance, I've just got to move on and talk about other guys like Keion White. Let's talk a little bit more about Keion, because obviously we just saw the video where Keion did look to be rehabbing very, very smoothly. We'll put it back up on the screen. This was posted by Keion himself to his social media. We saw Keion on the practice field last year for the 49ers wearing the number 56, and he played well for San Francisco. Talk about the reconstruction of the 49ers defensive line. And the 49ers D-line needs an Eric Armstead type of player who can play base downs on the outside and then could rush from the defensive tackle position on passing downs. And that's what Keion White did last year. And it's funny because the 49ers traded for him right before the deadline with New England. He had 2 years left on his contract, the 2025 season and this 2026 season. So this is a contract year for Keion White at age 27, a real chance to earn real NFL money, former second-round pick. And people were complaining that the 49ers didn't do anything at the trade deadline. And one of the great ironies was, well, the Eagles did a ton at the trade deadline. Well, what the Eagles did is they traded a third-round pick for Jaylen Phillips. The 49ers traded a sixth-round pick for Keion White. In the NFC wildcard playoff game between San Francisco and Philadelphia, Keion White had 4 pressures. Jaylen Phillips had 3 pressures. So the 49ers obviously won that game. I think Keion White was the better player in that game, and the 49ers held on to their third-round draft pick. So trading for Keion White was not nothing for the 49ers. In fact, he approached close to 20 pressures in his time after the trade deadline for San Francisco. So he was a difference maker for the 49ers, a pass rush that was completely depleted. They needed a little bit of juice, and they're not beating Philadelphia in the wild card round without the 4 pressures from Keion White. Now he's got a chance in this second season with the 49ers, full training camp under his belt. He's got a chance to earn himself some money in this offseason. Keion White, just like the 49ers draftees of the past 2 seasons, almost all their draftees of the past 2 seasons, has a very, very good relative athletic score. The guy jumps off the page when it comes to relative athletic score. The explosion, elite, as you can see in the bottom left. The speed grade, elite. And the size, well, you could say maybe a little bit of a tweener, right? He's 6'5", 285 pounds, and that means that, okay, he's not your prototypical light speed edge rusher, although he does move really, really well. And this is his number against other defensive tackles, by the way, on the relative athletic score. He's smaller than your big run-stopping DT. Somebody like Alfred Collins is going to check in at 320-plus pounds. Obviously, C.J. West, playing more one technique, is going to be built like a fire hydrant. So at 285 pounds, he's lighter than an Osa Odighizuwa even, who's in the 290s. But he can rush against those interior guys because he does have enough strength and size in order to do it. But he just brings the athleticism that is not usual for a defensive tackle to the table, which is why the 49ers are able to move him inside on those pass rushing downs. I think that we should take a look at, I've got the relative athletic score right up here, but I want to show everybody the reconstruction of the 49ers defensive line. I made this a few weeks ago so that everybody can compare what the 49ers defensive line looked like in 2024 when they had the number 26 defense in the league and what it's shaping up to look like now. And every player who is a draftee, I've highlighted in gold. Now, the thing about Keion White here on the right, he does not get a gold highlight, But I consider him essentially part of the 49ers draft class because they used the 6th round pick from 2026 on him. So he was essentially their 2026 6th round pick. Remember, they were very sparse on picks later in the draft. So you've got obviously Bosa as a holdover from a bad defense in 2024. But then other guys are not holdovers here. Floyd, Yetur Gross-Matos, Robert Beal, all gone. Malik Collins gone. Jordan Elliott gone. Evan Anderson still on the team, but we'll see if he cracks the top 8. Sam Okawanu still on the team. I think he might be trade bait for the 49ers, especially if they're able to bring in another defensive end. We'll see with Joey Bosa. I think that could be later in the season. I just made a video about that the other day. Jadeveon Clowney still out there as well. Of course, everybody's going to talk about Myles Garrett, but that trade, if it does happen, wouldn't be until much later, I would say before the trade deadline. And the deadline is where they acquired Keion White last year. No Kalia Davis, no Kevin Givens, no Javon Hargrave. I mean, it's been total turnover. And you could see the PFF grade of these guys in 2024. Green is good, red is bad. They just weren't good in 2024. And everybody was all up in arms about why did they cut Leonard Floyd? Why did they cut Malik Collins? Why did they cut Javon Hargrave? They cut those guys because the performance wasn't good. Look, number 26 defense. Who here thinks number 26 out of 32 teams is good? If you think it's good, just leave the chat right now. Just stop watching because it wasn't. So what they said is we got to revitalize a very aging, underperforming defensive line, especially against the run. So what do? They rebuilt through the draft. Mykel Williams, Romello Height. I consider Keion White a draft pick because he was on his rookie deal and they used a 6th round selection to get him. Sam Okawanu came aboard in 2024. He's still on the team now, so that's not a draft pick, but that's an outlier compared to the rest of these guys. Alfred Collins, 2nd rounder. CJ West, 4th rounder. Osa Odighizuwa, 2026 trade. Osa Odighizuwa, I would say another use of a draft selection for the 49ers. Their 3rd round pick went to Dallas for Osa Odighizuwa. If the 49ers would have tried to outbid the Philadelphia Eagles for Jaylen Phillips, well, they would have had to use a 3rd round pick at the very least. Then they wouldn't have had that 3rd rounder to turn around for Osa Odighizuwa. And guess what? Although Jaylen Phillips has been extended, Philadelphia only got 1 year of team control, only last season, of Jaylen Phillips for the 3rd round pick. The same 3rd round pick, the same level of pick that the 49ers then turned around and used for Osa Odighizuwa came with 3 years of team control. And a much bigger need for the 49ers. Defensive tackle was completely depleted last year. I've said this stat 50 times already. I'll say it again. 52 pressures for Osa Odighizuwa last season, 56 pressures for all of the 49ers defensive tackles combined last offseason. So this was sorely needed for San Francisco. Back to this. Grayson Halton, 4th round pick. And of course, Sebastian Valdez, a 2025 undrafted free agent. The Hulk. I, for one, am very interested to see this 49ers defensive line in action because they've made it younger. They've gone from the oldest defense in the league to the 3rd youngest defense in the league. They should have Nick Bosa back, and Bosa is obviously a huge component of what the 49ers are planning. He makes everybody better, and they now have a premium defensive tackle in Osa Odighizuwa who should make the defensive ends better as well. There should be a domino effect. But somebody like Keion White, the good news coming today through that video, he is a player who can deliver at both end and at tackle. I talk about the Eric Armstead type that the 49ers have needed. You can also say it's a Charles Omenihu type. And here, let's compare Keion White to Charles Omenihu against the defensive tackles. Both have elite relative athletic scores working as defensive tackles, which is what the 49ers have done with both of these players. Charles is in Washington now. Keion White is obviously with the 49ers. But they're built very similarly. I would say that Charles is a little lankier, and Keion is probably stronger, and the bench press indicates that 30 bench press reps versus 15 for Keion. So Keion is a bit of a thicker athlete, probably has better potential against the run, whereas Charles is going to be a little more explosive when it comes to just getting off the ball. You can see the vertical leap is 36.5 inches. The broad jump, though, for Keion White, about identical, a little bit more than Charles Omenihu's. Still very comparable players at around 6'5", 280, 285. They can set the edge in a 4-down front against the run on first down on those running downs. And Raheem Morris is a massive wild card for the 49ers because I think he's going to bring different fronts to San Francisco. I think we're going to see some 5-man front action. He might even have some tricks up his sleeve that we haven't even talked about yet because he's been in the league for so long and he's worked with so many different defensive minds for so long. That's why Kyle Shanahan loves him. I think that's why the 49ers defense has a chance to really take a massive step. And, guess what? The 49ers defense is going to be the variable that determines whether or not this team can win a Super Bowl. Brock Purdy is an elite quarterback. It's really funny on the Aiyuk note. At the time that the 49ers forked out the exchange, forked out the extension for Brandon Aiyuk, that was in 2024. There was, it was more than a narrative. I think there was a thought, and it might have come from the 49ers themselves, that Brock Purdy needed to be shepherded a little bit. That, 2023 went so well, but that we've got to make sure that he has the same weapons in 2024. So there was a desperation to pay Brandon Aiyuk. It's like, let's keep his ex-wide receiver. We have seen Brock Purdy operate at top-level efficiency even without Brandon Aiyuk since. There is no Deebo Samuel. There is no Brandon Aiyuk on the 49ers roster anymore. And Brock Purdy is still one of the elite quarterbacks in this game. All of the people that said that he was made by his weapons in 2023 have been proven to be flat out wrong because he performed as a top 2 QBR guy in 2025 without weapons on the perimeter, without an X receiver, with Brandon Aiyuk bailing the football team. Anyway, it's a long, long way of saying that the 49ers with Brock Purdy are in an okay position. The guy, now when you're looking at how they're building this football team, you can assume that offense is going to be a top 5 offense, especially now that they've redone the entire wide receiver core. Now he's got Mike Evans. Now he's got Dejon Stribling. Now he's got Kalen Black to help out Christian McCaffrey. They've got to get George Kittle back. But the offense was number 5 or number 6 last year in the efficiency rankings, even without wideouts. Now they're going to have receivers. And Purdy, the point is that Purdy is good enough to say this offense for the 49ers is going to carry the load. It's going to come down to the defense, which has ranked in the 20s at the end of both of the past 2 seasons. If the defense can vault back up into the top 15, the 49ers will be a contender. They'll be a peripheral contender. If they can vault back up into the top 12, they'll be a strong contender. If the 49ers defense can vault up into the top 10 this year under Raheem Morris, the 49ers might be a Super Bowl favorite. Because this is how history works, and these are just facts. You can get mad at them if you want, but these are just facts. It's what we present on the show. A top 5 offense paired with a top 5 defense, a top 10 defense, is typically a team in the mix of 2 or 3 top Super Bowl favorites, if not the top Super Bowl favorite. Special teams has something to say about that as well, but the 49ers were number 2 last year in special teams. The Seahawks last season, Seattle, they didn't have an elite offense. They played well offensively down the stretch, but they had the number 1 defense. They had the number 1 special teams, and then they had an offense that was around number 12. There you go. Dominant Super Bowl winner, the Seattle Seahawks. So if the 49ers can tread water on special teams, just stay where you were last year. Offense should be better, but even if they're where they were last year, number 5 or number 6, if that defense comes up into the top 15, all of a sudden the 49ers have something cooking. What they couldn't deal with last year was an offense that obviously was efficient but wasn't explosive, and then a bad defense to pair with it. The defense was what ultimately cost the 49ers, and it was because of the injuries, I get it, but it's what ultimately cost the 49ers in 2025. So players like Keion White are imperative for the 49ers moving forward because that defensive line has to continue getting better against the run. The pass rush has to continue getting better. Last year, it's a wash because of the injuries. I get it. This year, Bosa's got to come back. He has to deliver what he did over the first couple of weeks of last year, which was very impressive. The 49ers need to get the Osa Odighizuwa of the Dallas Cowboys delivering from them on the inside, and then they need the young guys to step up. Mykel Williams, come on down whenever he's ready, coming off the ACL. Somebody like Grayson Halton, Alfred Collins, CJ West, and yes, Keion White. One more time with Keion White. This is what he posted today for those of you just joining. Great news for the 49ers. Looks like Keion is going to be ready for training camp as the 49ers strive to have that very adaptable defensive end who might play that Mykel Williams role in week 1, by the way. If Mykel's not ready to go, he's about, 6 weeks behind Nick Bosa in the ACL recovery. So very important role for Keion White looms at the start of this season. All right, I'm ready to answer some of your questions. We're doing a fun little Sunday night show. I needed the water after pushing the car. Push the car. I'm like still sweating as I start the live. But I know like 85 of you were waiting, so I had to get straight to it. Ryan thinks that Grayson Halton's pretty good. We'll see. I mean, he was good in college. He has the explosiveness metrics to make you excited about him. And the NFL is such a technical game, which is why Chris Kocurek is a really good coach, because he teaches the technical aspect of things so well. You know, there are a lot of good athletes in the NFL. The 49ers might have an edge in relative athletic score over other teams because they focused so much on that explosiveness. But ultimately, what's going to determine whether you're a good player or a washout in the NFL is if you have the technique. The defensive line is very technique-based. The usage of hands, the polish that the 49ers have. You know, I didn't mention Romello Height earlier. They've been so excited about him as a potential hybrid player. That's somebody that can really demonstrate the prowess schematically of a Raheem Morris. See you in Melbourne for the matchup. So it may be Brisbane first for me, then Melbourne for some practices, and then I might fly down to Sydney on the day off, which I believe is Thursday, and then Melbourne for the game on Friday. That's the tentative Australia itinerary for me right now. Duggar is a linebacker. He played edge in college, and I think that the 49ers will probably use him in certain packages, pass rushing, but at his home position is going to be stack linebacker. All right, I'm open to some of your questions. Seem to be building their defense on hybrid guys. Fred Warner is the ultimate hybrid piece, right? Fred Warner, with his ability to cover, his ability to move, and also stop the run. Dre Greenlaw, I mean, all the 49ers have this fixation on linebackers who had a background playing DB, or at least had DB speed at lower levels of football. And I think it's the way that you counter hybrid offenses. If offenses are using hybrid weapons, you better have some on defense to counter them. I don't know if I'm going to... I was thinking about checking out the islands, like kind of by the Great Barrier Reef north of Brisbane. I just forgot the name of those islands. I'm going to look this up. This is 49ers Australia discussion, guys, here. Here's the Brisbane airport. I can't, it's a funny name. Somebody from Australia can help me out. You fly the Whitsundays, the Whitsunday Islands. Is that worth checking out? I was thinking about flying into Brisbane, getting on a hour-and-a-half flight. These islands look amazing. And I have the weekend, right? I land on Friday morning. 49ers don't practice till Monday. I go up to these islands. I could maybe not swim because I'll get eaten by a shark in Australia. I'm not afraid in California, but in Australia might be a different story. Then I hop on a plane from the Whitsunday Islands and head down to Melbourne, cover 3 49ers practices. Then I'm going to head up to Sydney for a day and a half and then go back for the game. I mean, I got this big plan. If you think it's a bad plan, let me know. But I want to see like cities and the outdoors in Australia, the Great Barrier Reef over by the Whitsunday Islands. Yep, exactly. Is that worth it, Garrett? Because I think that you're Australian. I'm guessing you are. If it's worth it, give me a thumbs up. Ooh, the Hamilton or Hayman Islands. All right. I'm taking notes right now. I'm going to go back to the 25-minute mark of this video and look at what you're saying, and it's going to help my Australia itinerary. That's for sure. I think it's probably illegal to box a kangaroo, and I'd probably get my ass kicked. So I don't think I'd want to fight a kangaroo. I think that's turned out bad for some people. Wow, Matthew proposed to his wife in Brisbane, and she said yes. You're gonna have to let me know where that happened. Is there a cool spot? Can BA be fined for misconduct? Yes, he can. The 49ers, and I'll get into this later. I don't want to get into it too far in this video. They can also recoup money. Like they can recoup a large chunk of the $48.1 million they paid Brandon Aiyuk. Now, what's funny, this is the last note I'll make on this because we got to do a whole show on something like this. But it's really hard to go and get money out of somebody's bank account once you've already paid them. The way that money would typically be recouped is through offsets of whatever money Brandon Aiyuk makes in the future in the NFL. In fact, it might even disincentivize him from playing again, even assuming he's even offered a contract to play again. But say that the 49ers successfully earn the right to recoup $12 million from Brandon Aiyuk, and he doesn't pay it back out of his bank account because that's really hard to enforce. The 49ers would be able to basically garnish the $12 million from future contracts. The NFL would dictate that to be the way that the 49ers get the money back, which would make it that Brandon Aiyuk would just be playing football and the 49ers would be getting paid for it, which, you know, might just, if Brandon Aiyuk has any designs of playing moving forward, it might just cause him to not play. I don't know. I don't know where Brandon Aiyuk is at mentally. I'm not sure anybody on the outside knows. There's a lot of speculation right now. All I'm doing is following his actions instead of his words, and his actions up to this point have not indicated that he actually wants to be back in the NFL. How do you feel about the right side of the offensive line? I know defense is the focus, but Brock needs protection on that side. Well, Colton McKivitz is a solid player. He's improved every single season. He's an above-average right tackle at this point, and I would expect him to continue improving. He's a guy, he's never won with athleticism, right? He was a fifth-round draft pick out of West Virginia. Colton McKivitz is somebody who has learned the craft. Drafted in 2020, cut in 2021, practice squad, filled in for Trent Williams in some massive, massive moments, including that Week 18 win against the Rams in 2021 down at SoFi. Initially played guard before he moved out to tackle. That was left tackle. Then he moved out to right tackle, became a starter, has put a lot of starts under his belt. If you're an NFL team, you feel comfortable with a guy like that at right tackle. Obviously, you feel comfortable on the opposite side with Trent Williams. Dominic Puni was one of the biggest rookie surprises in a positive way in 2024. He played with a hurt knee last year. I would expect Dominic Puni to be better with a healthy knee in 2026. Right away, that's not a bad right side of the offensive line between Puni and Colton McKivitz. Terry says Brock needs guys to get open, then he will avoid the sacks. Well, Brock already avoids sacks better than any other quarterback in the NFL. best pressure to sack ratio in the entire league. Brock needs guys to get open so the 49ers offense can be consistently explosive. That is true. And yes, guys getting open will also further lower the sack rate, but let's not pretend that Purdy isn't already avoiding some of these sacks. Puni at 100%. I think that's something to be excited about if you're a 49ers fan. He got hurt on an extra point in the preseason against the Raiders last year, and it really lingered with him. Yeah, I think this is very fair. I think McKivitz has gone from okay to solid. I think he's gone from below average to okay to solid. And it's a testament of hard work. And those are the kind of guys that make the locker room rock solid. You know, you have guys that come in and are flashes in the pan and they fizzle out. You've got superstars who obviously don't maintain superstar behavior. We've been talking about Brandon Aiyuk. And then you've got guys like Colton McKivitz, who 5th round pick, was definitely not a superstar coming into the league, but is slowly but surely making a solid name for himself. Just blue collar kind of guy. He just posted another. I forgot if he was fishing. I think he was fishing in the latest photo that we saw on Instagram. But he loves hunting. He loves fishing. Blue collar guy, has made himself a very important, productive piece of the 49ers offensive line. Could I see them bring Arik Armstead back if he's cut by the Jags? Yes. I mean, it all depends on price and fit, but to me, the fit part, he and Chris Kocurek really get along. Like, Eric credits Chris Kocurek for getting him paid and giving him generational wealth because he signed that extension in the 2020 offseason, right? That was massive for Arik Armstead. They traded away DeForest Buckner. They paid Armstead. It wasn't an either-or kind of thing. It was much more complicated than that. But Armstead was a very good, productive player for the 49ers. Earned the big contract from San Francisco, and then he earned a big one from Jacksonville. So he traces a lot of that back to Chris Kocurek. Was Purdy's 2025 sack avoidance rate consistent with his previous years? It was a little bit better, so he's improving in that regard, but he's always been good at avoiding sacks. From the very start, I still remember Brock Purdy against the Miami Dolphins when he came in for Garoppolo, who had broken his foot in 2022. Miami was running all-out blitzes. They threw the kitchen sink at Brock. There was that 3rd down where they ran cover 0. And he found George Kittle. He got rid of the ball in time to find George Kittle. The next week, things got even more intense because Tampa Bay was starting to disguise on the back end. They had some tape to watch. And Brock Purdy started sidestepping people. I mean, the crown jewel of Brock Purdy's escapability, the highlight of all highlights, was the one against the Bears this past year where he found Kyle Juszczyk for the touchdown. Embarrassed the entire Bears defense on one play. But the media acted like that was the first time Brock Purdy had made a play like that. They just hadn't been watching, or they were too biased to admit that he does that on an almost weekly basis. You can go back to the Tampa Bay game. He found Deebo Samuel on a play. I forgot it was 1st, 2nd, or 3rd down. I think it was a 2nd down. First half of the Tampa Bay game. The sidestep, the kind of lean back from Brock Purdy, get out of traffic. He found Deebo Samuel to the near side. Big gain, 1st down. That was the first time I remember watching Brock and being like, whoa, he's got some out of structure capability. The in structure capability was on display in that first game against Miami when he came in for Jimmy. The out of structure capability started showing up against Tampa in his first start with Tom Brady on the other side, and the rest was history. In 2023, he was the most efficient quarterback in football. In 2024, he was a top 5 guy efficiency-wise, despite disaster all around him. In 2025, he was number 2 in QBR without wide receiver separation. I mean, the guy is elite. The guy's at the top of his game, and because of that, the 49ers have a chance if the defense can just push up into the top 15, which is why we're talking about Keion White and company. His signature play would have been the one Brandon Aiyuk dropped. That wasn't against Tampa, though. That was against Seattle in the wild card round of the playoffs. I know exactly what you're talking about. It was Purdy running around everywhere and then rolling to his right and then slinging it to the back pylon, and Aiyuk just dropped it. I mean, yeah, that's especially now knowing what's happened with Brandon Aiyuk. That's a grimace kind of play, right? It was a grimace kind of play at the time. I believe that's our most viewed short ever on YouTube, by the way. Mike told me it has over 1 million views. It's that Purdy throw against the Seattle Seahawks in the wild card round of the playoffs in the 2022 season. You think the 49ers can get Armstead? That'd be a cool reunion. I know Chris Kocurek wouldn't be against it. The throw against Jacksonville in 23, where Kyle Shanahan said that he thought that Purdy was throwing a grenade out of a bunker. That was awesome. Terry just brought that throw up. That's where Kittle high stepped into the end zone, stopped at the 1-inch line, and then crossed over. That was another blowout. That was another masterclass kind of game. That was an awesome, awesome throw from Purdy. There's so many of them, right? You could go. I remember every one of them when I'm reminded, but there are too many to remember just like listing. But when you guys bring up different throws in the comments section, I definitely, I've got the photographic memory comes alive. It's fun. You're talking about the most famous signature play against the Bears. Mike Evans with Purdy. Yes. Because, you know, so much of what Brock does is predicated on accuracy to the intermediate level of the field. Accurate quarterbacks always, always benefit from tall receivers because the QB has the ability to take advantage of the receiver's height. And Brock definitely has the accuracy to take advantage of Mike Evans' height. Oh, Ryan is saying the 49ers have enough defensive line now. They don't have room for Armstead. Yes, but stuff can change. Well, and probably will change. Guys get hurt. Now, I shouldn't have said yes. There is room for one more defensive end on this team. Now, you could argue that Armstead is somebody they look at more as a tackle. So you could say, okay, that's not the guy that they want. But there's a reason why the 49ers would be very interested in Joey Bosa at a certain price. Who knows? Jadeveon Clowney out there. There's a reason why Maxx Crosby is in 49ers trade rumor discussions and somebody that they might be interested in closer to the deadline. I think that one more defensive end could really, really propel this defensive line to stratospheric levels. They've added a lot. One more D end. And you don't have to add him now. Eric Kendricks, linebacker, joined this team, November, December of last year around Thanksgiving. And he ended up winning a game, sealing the win in the playoffs against Philadelphia. Veterans understand, especially guys with tens of millions socked away in the bank, like a Joey Bosa. I think there's an understanding you don't have to be there for all 20 games of the season, especially if you think your body might wear down at an advanced age. Just join later. Join later so you're peaking at the right time. Genius. Ryan says he'd rather trade for Jared Verse than Crosby at this point. Yeah, Verse is going to cost you a whole lot more, though. Verse is younger. Verse doesn't have the same injury flags as Maxx Crosby. So you get what you pay for kind of thing. And guys with injury concerns, that's tough. All right, guys, everybody, thanks for watching. I'm tired. Got done pushing the car. Tomorrow I get to find out what's wrong with it. I'm going to have to take a closer look. But we made it in for the show because you are all important. All right, we'll talk to you soon.